coming this weekend, folks. It is the number one competition in all of Wraith. It is the gore belching competition. Come on out, belch your heart out, get belching, get a little gory, folks. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be really great. I promise. And the winner is going to take home something. Who knows? They didn't tell me that. That wasn't in my ad copy. We don't know what the winner is going to take home, but come on out this weekend. Fresh and Buds. Now.
Fresh and
All right, folks. Welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. It is episode 142, folks. And this week, I am still Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. But this week, we are joined by Florin-Cristian, Loghin, one of the best pro players that we have, for a long time since I've been playing. Florin's name has been coming up, and finally got him on the show. Florin, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, nice to see you and to meet you in a digital world.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. We've followed each other for a long time, and I always enjoy your input on stuff as well. And I figured, let's get to know you. And then also I want to talk a little bit this week about kind of Kayo. Kayo's doing stuff right now, and there's no doubt about that. And I don't know if it's a good thing or it is. So we're gonna decide, and then LSS can make decisions based on our opinions on this show. But first of all, you've been part of the Flesh and Blood scene for a very long time, and as I said before, but notably, the first time I heard of you was when you were a finalist at Pro Tour New Jersey, which was awesome. That's part of history right there. First Pro Tour of Flesh and Blood. First of all, how was that experience? And then I want to ask you, were you doing TCGs prior to Fab?
I'll answer the first one since it's a little shorter. Yeah, I used to play a little bit of Magic before. But yeah, I used to play computer games more than cards before Flesh and Blood.
What kind of computer games? Like strategic or like more card games?
More like World of Warcraft.
Okay.
I got hooked when I was young, and it didn't let me go for some time. But yeah, then I moved on to cards. Now I'm here. I'm stuck here.
How long
But
did
I
you
like
play
it.
Magic?
On and off, maybe like 3-4 years. So I played it as a kid, and then like in various stages of life, and then that's kind of how I got into Fab. So I was playing Magic, and then there was the whole COVID thing, and then Flesh and Blood was actually the first tournaments that we could play, or that were being organized in person. And I'm like, sure, let's try it out. And well, here we are. I think it's 3 years almost now.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we are 2 years removed from Pro Tour New Jersey at this point. Is that right? Was that 2022?
2022. It was May, I think, even.
Mm-hmm.
So it might actually be exactly 2 years. So yeah, prior to Pro Tour, I was playing basically a year, not even. But I guess that's most people that were playing at that time. That's kind of the time period that they had. I mean, that were from Europe, and in the US and of course Australia and New Zealand, these guys were playing for longer. But yeah, to your return to the first question, how was it? It was unreal. Let's say is the first word that came to mind. I played Starvo, which some of the viewers might remember.
Yeah.
Some might not be familiar with the deck. Well, I guess not with Living Legends. But yeah, I started 3-2 in the tournament, so similar to Pablo, it wasn't a great start. And then day 2 was just one game after the other. They all kind of melded together in like one day. I was very jet lagged. It was my first trip to the US, so I hadn't really got accustomed. And then Sunday was just, let's see where it goes. I was just already like ecstatic to be there and be, So yeah, I had a few close games, both in the quarters and in the semis, and then against Pablo. Yeah, it's televised, so anyone who wants to go can go see it. So yeah, even though I was the first televised loser, let's say the first big loser of Fab, if you want to call it, if you want to see it like that, it was, yeah, of course, unreal, and I was beyond like happy. There was just no. It's such an unreal feeling. I don't know. Some people like were like, "No, it's okay. It's such a good result. Like, don't be upset that you lost." It was neither. It was kind of like just okay. The tournament just finished now. Kind of that was the mindset when I lost. But yeah, afterwards it stings more later.
Yeah. I mean, for context, because you mentioned perhaps some of our viewers or listeners don't know that Starvo was quite the menace, but they also probably, if you don't remember Starvo, you probably don't remember the energy that was in the air at Pro Tour New Jersey. I think people were very excited. It was a very exciting event. Obviously, I wouldn't call you the first loser. That's pretty, damning there, because there's got to be somebody who lost like round one and dropped. We gotta say that that's the first. But it is pretty incredible to kind of be part of like kind of a historic event like that. And you mentioned that you'd only been playing a year, I guess, at that point, Flesh and Blood, and did you ever really find that kind of competitive drive, or was this the time? You did well at Pro Tour New Jersey, and you're like, all right, I'm into the trading card game, like life, and being competitive there.
I've been a very competitive person. Like, let's say I have that characteristic. I've been told, at least. I wasn't really aware of it until a few people have told me along the way. So I used to. I think it was just internal kind of thing. I was already interested in Fab. That wasn't the kickoff. I already wanted to play Fab and do well and get better at the game.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the attitude towards and after it. But yeah, that I enjoy the competition, and that's kind of like I feel sometimes I feel like I would love to just play 1 month of just tournaments, just from Monday to Sunday, and just do that. Of course, we don't live in that world, but
yeah. Well, I mean, hey, you never know. I mean, that we could reach that one day in Flesh and Blood, but I doubt it. But I totally understand that, and it is pretty incredible. First of all, being jet lagged, first time in the U.S., right, and then get second at a pro tour, against some of the best players in the world, including yourself, and that is awesome. But then, like, fast forward to even this past fall in Barcelona, you take down the Calling. How was that experience? Because that was, the big win, which is really awesome.
That was I don't want to say a funny story, but so I was 4-3 at the Worlds, and then I was like thinking about what I should do on Saturday. So I was allowed to play. Basically, I qualified for day 2, but I was playing Bravo and Constructed, and I kind of felt like I got away with it in the first 4 rounds where I went 3-1. I'm like, I'm not gonna do this again. So it was kind of an uphill battle, and I was outside joking with some of my friends, and then I'm like, you know what? I'll just play the Calling. I felt very, very comforted and limited. Even though I went 1-2 at Worlds, I felt very prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a joke, I said, we don't play for min cash, which was top 64, I think, at Worlds. We play for top 8s. I said it was a joke. Of course, it sounds very arrogant to say this, I know, but there was kind of as a banter joke. And then, yeah, started. Another one of my friends was in the same position, and they played Worlds, and they did okay. And we were sitting opposite each other, so we were registering the deck pool on one side, and they were drafting on the other side. And I kind of like made eye contact with him, and we were like both smiling about if I made the right decision of not being next to him drafting rather than being during sealed pool. So yeah, day one of sealed went fine. I got this is my feeling with the limited tournaments. So the problem is you kind of just want to get out of day one, and then get into the draft. The sealed has its issues, which I think funnily enough, I think in Mists they're trying something new now, which I think is going to vastly improve sealed. Let's see if it actually turns out that way.
Yeah.
That's a topic for another time. I don't want to steal someone else's topic because you're gonna talk about it in a few weeks.
I mean, I'm not even totally. I mean, like, you know, we know that 8 packs, right? You know, and how much of that, like, is there new information on how the sealed format's going to be in?
No, I think it's still the same that you play 30 cards. I think.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, 30 exactly.
Yeah, from what I understood.
Okay,
but
cool.
We'll see in Tokyo, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, got out of that, and then day 2, I was 6-1, I think, or 7-1. I was X1 day. So I had to win. I don't remember the number, but there was a number in my head of wins that I had to get, and then I basically, after every win, I'm like, okay, this many more, this many more, this many more, and then yeah, top 8 wasn't. I was lucky, fortunate enough that one of my teammates was also top 8, so it was. And I knew a lot of the people that were top 8 as well from before, like Fam from Germany. He was top 8 worlds in New San Jose. That was the one. So we were kind of just chilling around talking. It was all like very relaxed, and it was all also very separate from everything else. We were in a corner, in a dark corner at the back of the hall. Like it was all chill, no shouting, not a lot of noise. And then yeah, the draft went well. I played Max. Fatigued the first Tekla-Vossen. Then I think I played against Tekla-Vossen against my friend in the semis, and then it was against Dash in the finals, who I had played before. It was basically the same matchup we had played in the Swiss against the finalist. So we kind of did a rematch. He was again on Dash, and I was again on Max. So we kind of already knew what we were trying to do each. And yeah, just again, it was one of those in the final. It melds it melds together, and when you're finished, it's finished. Like for me, it was like, okay, the tournament's over. It was I don't want to say relief, but that's kind of, it's like from the energy level and the concentration, you're just like, okay, it's done, and it goes down, and like the adrenaline starts leaving your body, and you are happy, but it's like more of a okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's like it's like there's so much tension built over like a whole weekend, especially, and it is kind of funny, like especially with limited, because they're shorter games, right? Like we see a lot of these like big CC games on the top 8s of Worlds and stuff like that, and those are just like really like sometimes long, arduous kind of games, right? Like even looking at Pro Tour LA, right? It's probably probably going to be one of the more famous like finals matches in a long time. And like, you just see like that, like so intense Arthur Max just like really like getting there. And it's a long game where like a limited game, it can't be. I mean, I guess it can be, because they're untimed like top 8 matches, but I think they rarely are as long. So it is kind of funny. Now, you mentioned that you were confident in your limited play. Was that specific to Bright Lights that season, or are you just more confident in limited in general? And that's something you look forward to in Flesh and Blood?
I want to say, well, it was, so first of all, the format, we were very happy. It just felt good for me and my teammates. It was very nuanced, even though a lot of people didn't think so. So you had a lot of cards that were similar, and did kind of the same thing. And as such, drafting was a little bit more difficult, and you could get a few more edges. Right now in heavy hitters, let's say the delta in value between cards kind of goes a little bit apart. I mean, 3-4-7 is good. Everyone can registers that's a good card.
Yeah.
And let's pick that up. And these sort of like, I need to pick Go again, and I need to pick the armor, and so on and so forth. So it's in a way simpler to draft heavy hitters. And then let's say when everyone is on the same page, and at the high, like at the Pro Tours, or let's say even calling top eights, everyone's kind of already knows what they're doing, so it's harder to get an edge there in heavy hitters rather than bright lights. But for us, for me, but I think some of the people that I play with as well, it's easier to get an edge in limited. There's also significantly less resources for the people. When you play CC right now, let's say you want to start playing Kayo, which we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you do? You watch a video, have a deck tech. You can watch some tournaments where people are playing Kayo, right? So you can start and you can watch tape, so to say, and you can get to a certain level. Maybe even get a sideboard guide from a Patreon. Maybe you talk with some people, and you're already from a knowledge base very high up already. Now you just have to play the game, but if you watch a few videos, you kind of see already the play patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Now in limited, that kind of gets pulled back a lot. There are very few limited videos. If you don't, if you're not already deep into the format, watching a limited, even if it's a calling top 8, doesn't mean that much what they're doing or what's happening on the board, right?
Yeah.
But if you see the way someone sets up certain cards, certain combinations, for example, let's say Dorinthia with the Spill Blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just get played out when it comes in hand, but you put it down, you wait for an agility, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see it once, you understand it. Okay, I'm going to try to emulate. But if you have all these cards that are in bright light, it's all 2/5 go against. What does this mean? Which ones do I block? Where do I take damage? What do I arsenal? What's like? How does this all? So that's why it's a bit more interesting. Plus, the games sometimes play a little different. So it's not. Sometimes in Fab there are games which they kind of repeat themselves. I know this sounds weird.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but it might sound weird to some. So if you're playing Guardian Mirror, Ultimate Mirrors, 2-hour games, what is everyone doing is just like hammer, 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 hammer. And you just know when where the important points of the game are the turns. While in Limited, you don't have, first of all, you don't have deck information. You don't know what's in the opponent's deck. You don't have that in CC all the time, but you kind of know.
Mm-hmm.
In Limited, like there are some tricks that can come up or how many 7/4/3s do they actually have in their deck, right? How many go against do they actually have, and so on and so forth. So it's more of this imperfect information that makes it interesting, let's say. Or it's not that I don't like playing CC, but that's the difference between the two for me, and that's what pulls me more into Limited.
Yeah, and it's tough because even like at the beginning of a format in Limited, I think it's always helpful to see like, when people start doing their drafts and like they're like, "Oh, I went 3-0 at my armory with Rhinar or whatever," and you're like, "Oh, can I see what the deck looked like?" And that's always kind of helpful, but there's so much more context there that isn't, being portrayed. When did you pick this? And so on and so forth, and like, did you prioritize that? Did that wheel? Yada yada yada. So it is very interesting. It's one of the things I love the most about Limited, and it is really cool. And I think I forget who. It might have been Cody Williams who was on, and he was talking about how, if I'm wrong, listeners, let me know in the comments. But I think he was saying that, the drafting in Bright Lights was so unique and a lot of fun, and like the decisions, like you said, because there's so much nuance, like you could do so many cool things during the draft, and the gameplay wasn't as great. Where Heavy Hitter is kind of the opposite, it's not as fun of a drafting experience, but the gameplay was like a lot of fun. So hopefully in Part the Misfail, we kind of see both. That'll be really cool. So, pretty cool. And, I'm glad that you did it on Max too, because Max was the coolest, I think, out of all the heroes.
Yes, she was our favorite.
Yeah, I mean,
he was the unloved child.
Yeah, he could do so many cool things. Now, before we get to more Flesh and Blood, I want to ask you about American sports. Only because I believe I once saw you tweet that you were an occasional watcher of the NFL. I think maybe in response to like a what's the Arsenal pass thumbnail or something like that. And then also, I think in your calling, is that an Orioles hat that you're wearing? A Baltimore
Yes.
Orioles hat? First of all, as a European, how did you get into the NFL/MLB, or were you just in Baltimore for the Pro Tour and you bought a hat?
So I was just in Baltimore and bought the hat. So I used to actually play a little bit of baseball at school.
Okay.
Not a lot, just for fun here and there. I went to an international school in Vienna, so there was a lot of overlap with. There was an American school as well, so there was like some interaction with that school, and it was more, of course, the influence was there. Um, Also for the NFL and the NBA, I watch more NBA than. I mean, I watched NFL and NBA, not MLB. I tried to watch baseball, but I can't.
It's slow.
It's slow.
It's Oldham mirrors sometimes. It can.
It is.
It'll have the big moments sometimes though.
To be honest, I think it would be something I would actually really like. I would get into it if someone would like. If I would have someone who would explain it to me, like beyond the. There's a guy with the bat who's hitting it, and there's like a few guys catching and throwing the ball and all this stuff. But more of a, what goes on behind the scenes and the whole stat stuff and all that stuff, the strategy and how you manage your roster and all that. I mean, I kind of got a bit of an idea, but not really deep into it. And it's also a little harder so I noticed this. We were in Indianapolis, me and my good friend who I travel with. And there was the Indianapolis Lakers game. We just randomly looked, hey, what can we do here in Indianapolis? It was calling Indianapolis last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and watched the game. So it was the first like NBA game I saw live, and it was just I understood then the atmosphere and people's love for their teams. Before I didn't. As a European, it's a little hard. Like, of course, we have football teams and, well, soccer, I guess, and the dedication to thing. But like the atmosphere for I don't know, the NBA, it was just crazy it was so insane. It was such a great and fun, like one of my top trips from Fab because of what we watched that game. It was also a good game to watch because the Lakers were behind and then they caught up, and then it was kind of it wasn't just like a blowout. Okay, guys, fourth quarter, everyone just go home. And then I understood, this is, the energy, and that's how you become a fan, right, of the.
I mean, it is something else, and it always intrigues me when I see, a European or somebody from anywhere else in the world that like is interested in a sport, especially like NFL or NBA. Although I guess like basketball is probably a little bit more international than perhaps, definitely than the NFL. NFL is very, American. But so it's just very intriguing to me. And yeah, the energy is awesome. You got to see, I guess you got to see LeBron, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is, I guess, you lucked out. Like, you don't get to see, like, one of the best ever, that often.
It was surreal because, like, you see him warm up and he's walking like a grandpa, like waddling along, like really walking slowly. And then it's like game time, boom. Like, okay, like beast of a human, right? Yeah. Like, even though he's, I don't know, 38 now, I don't know, 39. Or is he over 40 already? I don't even know.
He's not 40 yet, but the longevity he's had has been pretty incredible. So I don't know how much longer,
Like, I'm 35 soonish, right, this year. Like, I don't want to swear, but wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're allowed to swear. I mean, I'm 32 and I wake up and I'm like, my back really, really hurts today because I did something yesterday. So like, I don't know if some of them do it, but yeah, I just had to ask because I noticed it, and that's all right. Maybe next time you're in the States, go to a baseball game. That'd be kind of fun, right? It's more about drinking beer and eating hot dogs, to be honest, when you go. So
I like hot dogs, so
yeah. So if you're into that, it's a good time. Now, let's get to the fresh faves. Now, these are going to be your favorite cards in the game. If you're ready to answer them, I'm going to throw them at you. The first is, who is your favorite hero?
Has to be Bravo, star of the show.
Wow. Star of the show. Why is that?
It's just so much has come off the back of that for me in the game. I guess that it was. Plus, it was a unique. It was a unique playstyle to play. So,
Yeah.
but
The,
I like that era of heroes. So
okay.
like the chain. I like the prism.
It
Even the
was
Lexi, the Briar. Like I liked that kind of playstyle. Uh,
you like power.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your favorite weapon?
My favorite weapon has to be Rosetta Thorn.
Oh man. Oh man. You're like the heel in wrestling. You picked
Yeah,
Bravo star of the show, Rosetta Thorn. Why do you like Rosetta Thorn?
because it because of how much people cried about it. I should have probably said Winter Well because people were crying about that as well.
It's like
No,
Tales
I
of
mean
Mario was good or something.
it allowed it allows Rune Blades to play also beyond the pure physical damage, block for 3, block for 4. It also forces a little bit the onus on the opposing player to, either get a B, like you're taking some damage, the game is moving forward. Or you can play double AB and then pitch a card for double AB, sure, fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's it has that nice, and it promotes a deck building. It creates restriction on the deck building, which I think there are few cards that do that really. I mean, you can argue that Winter's Well did that because you have to play ice cards,
Mm-hmm.
but not to that extent. You can say Voltaire had restrictions because you have to put arrows in your deck, but that doesn't really count. So yeah, that's the main reason.
I mean, you wouldn't be the first to say Rosetta Thorn. I will say that people do. I mean, I think as we create distance from it being legal, I think people continue to look back on it fondly. But I remember how much crying was being. I was also someone that's like, oh, this card's insane, but it never again, hopefully. But whatever LSS wants to do. Now, what's your favorite equipment?
Should I say Crown of Seeds and be like the complete like? No, I'm joking.
No,
I'll say
Crown of
another
Seeds.
card that people have forgotten, which is probably the best equipment ever made, which was Skeletta, Blood-Sheath
Oh,
Skeletta.
yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah, I played the first calling in Europe was Blitz, and we played Viserai Mirrors, and I was lucky enough to also to top 8 in that, even though I had no idea what I was doing. We basically copied Hope March. So I think you know the deck, but maybe for the viewers as well. So essentially, what you did is because you started 20 life, you played cards like Hope Merchant's Hood
yep.
in Blitz, where you would put away cards and then pick up cards, right? Because all you wanted to do is just combo kill turn 2. You were made your rune chance, you sacrificed your chest, you did a Sonata, and you just went from there. So that's why people didn't like the card. People also, I guess, didn't like the card because of the OTK Viserai.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, why I like the card is it created. There was the Viserai deck, which didn't get a lot of acknowledgement because it was being played in Starvo days. But it was a sort of mid-range Viserai deck where you would use the chest at some point to create a more powerful turn based on a few rune chats, but you were just doing it for a reduction of 2 to 3, somewhere in that range. And that was, you were making a Sonata, and then you were attack, like for an attack, right? And that was why I liked the piece. It allowed you to have these mini combo turns where you were making decisions up to that point, and you had to make a decision in the game. When am I using this resource? It's a one-time thing. I have to use it as efficiently as possible. It's basically a decision that's not automatic. If you're playing OTK Viscera, it's pretty automatic when you get to, I don't know what the number was, but I guess 30 rune chance or something. It's like, okay, I cracked this now, and boom.
Go
There's no
off.
decision there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Funny thing about that piece of equipment is I think I do remember some people crying about that card a little bit, but to be honest, I think I hear more people crying that it isn't legal anymore because the Runeblade players really like that card. And I understand that it also made their decks a lot more viable and yada yada yada. But it's gone forever. Maybe we'll get something close. I mean, we got this sash, which I guess we'll bring up in a sec, but it feels a little bit similar. But and then final question here is, what's your favorite card you throw in your deck? Your a non-attack action, attack action, item, block, reaction.
Sink below.
It's just the best.
Funny interaction with it. So we were playing because Guardian was there for so long, Crown, and at some point I was play testing against someone, and I sink below and I put the card from my arsenal under my deck and I draw a card. And my testing partner's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, whoops, it's sink. That doesn't take arsenal." And then they brought the Crown that does do that, right? So it's like that was the memorable. Plus, it's just such a good card.
I know. Well, it is funny, like. Even now, playing with Crown and Sync, you're just like, you have to stop yourself. Sometimes you're like, no, it's just my hand this time. But yeah, Sync's amazing, beautiful art, iconic card, no notes. I don't think it's just good. And just
good.
It's just good. But you know what else is just good, Florin? Kayo, man. So all right. Kayo's off to a ripping start in his life cycle in Classic Constructed, at least. Came out in, what was that, February, first weekend in February. Already has hit over 400 points on the Living Legends leaderboard, which is pretty intense. Now, we're here at the looming release of the Kayo deck, which I think comes out tomorrow if you're listening to this when this comes out, which doesn't have a ton of crazy stuff in it, but it has some crazy stuff in it. Do you think that LSS needs to kind of say, hey, we need to stop this deck from LLing so quick, or are they just letting it ride?
It's a multifaceted question.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. Where is KO and what is where is it in terms of power level? So obviously tier S deck, it's performing very, very well. It does very, very well. It's also a deck that is relatively, I think, appeals to a wider player base. So if I would compare it to previous decks, I think it's similar to Fi in a lot of ways. For me, at least, it has a lot of parallels to Fi. So you have some setup turns, you're doing constant damage, you are the aggressor in the matchup almost always. And it has this, I'm doing actions.
Yeah.
Kind of. What it does very well, of course, you can create damage spikes. Not every deck can do. So through Cast Bones, through Bloodrush Bellows, through just 5-card hands, for that matter. You have very good equipment. I think probably the best equipment suite in the game if you take all the pieces together. Alone on block value, it's already up there. But also each piece is not just a vanilla 2-block, 1-block. And now we're going to have the 2-block do something rather than a tunic or a cross strap, right? Cross strap it's called. So of course it's up there. Is it going to be the best deck? Probably. Will it not have any counterplay? I don't know.
Yeah.
I was going to say we have a calling here in Europe next week. Starts on Friday, so I guess we're gonna have some answers then. Maybe not. But that's the playing part.
Yeah. It's so. This is kind of interesting. This is a conversation that happened in the Buds Discord actually not too long ago. Was, is KO LSS's kind of solution to the Bloodrush Bellow plus Mandible Claw issue, if you want to call it an issue, right? they can't print a lot of crazy Rhinar cards, or I mean, I guess they can. I mean, based on what we saw with Levia, they can print some good Levia cards. But like, the design space and the reasoning that they gave us for Berserk being banned was like it's hard to design cards when we have to keep that in mind, like because this could create something that's really an issue, and perhaps Blood Rush Bellow into Mandible Claws isn't really that much of an issue, but it is very powerful. And until KO was printed, there was no way that Mandible Claws was ever going to get out of the format, right? Because it didn't have a hero that it was a signature weapon for. Now that KO is in the format and it is the signature weapon for KO, if KO just speed runs this Living Legend, all of a sudden both Rhinar and Levia don't have the Mandible Claw Blood Rush Bellow thing, which sucks, I think, for those heroes, but also allows them to explore more design space, and maybe that's what LSS wants to do. What is your opinion on that? Do you think this is kind of a soft fix for the Mandible Claw thing? I won't call it an issue. I like Mandible Claws. So
it would surprise me strongly if this is their intent. So from my understanding and from my personal opinion, not that I have a very deep connection with the LSS development team, I don't think they are. So I also don't think it looks good, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to have this Tales of Arya. I think they wouldn't want to have this Tales of Arya thematic, which they've had. So they had, if you look back, so Arcane Rising and Welcome to Wrath Heroes, and then you had the Monarch Heroes, which are a little bit stronger, and then you brought out Tales, right? And then all the Tales heroes have LL'd, and you had this huge power spike, and they dominated, essentially, literally, like one after the other, they dominated, right? So it was Briar first, even though Briar LL later, Briar dominated first, then she got nerfed. Then it was Ultim, and then like Lexi when Outsiders came out. So I don't think they want that to happen again. I think it's also a very bad look for new players if the constructed deck that we're bringing out is for a hero that LLs in not record time, but at a very fast pace.
Yeah.
Which seems to be the case now. I mean, it's at 400 points. If things went certain ways, right? So Daniel Correas could have won Pro Tour LA. That would have been another 200 points, I believe, is for Pro Tour. So we would be at 600 now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then it doesn't look so good. Then they would have probably done something. I don't know. Let's see if something happens. If KO wins, calling Warsaw.
Yeah, Warsaw. Yeah.
And it does very well still in the last ProQuest weekend, which I don't see why it wouldn't, considering it's getting upgrades and it's already dominating. So I don't see why it would go back. It wouldn't make sense. So I don't think I wouldn't want that to be the case.
Yeah.
The claws thematic to getting rid of claws so that Blood Rush Bellow is not a problem. For Berserk, I understand. I played a Berserk deck at Pro Tour. I played a KO Berserk. It was probably a bit crazy, but so I was doing already all these combo things, which now with Sash would have been absolutely insane.
Yeah.
You could OTK people through. So I had done it before through full armor 40 life victor. I just killed them in one turn through their hand, through everything. Wow. So with this Sash, it would have been happening much more consistently and more of the time. So I understand that they killed Berserk because Berserk does stop you from making too many sixes.
Yeah.
So if you go to a Brute right now, their solution is if you want to play the sixes game, you have to play KO, right? So both Levia and Rhinar don't really you don't see wild rides really. You kind of see it in Levia at times, but you don't lean into it like a KO does.
Yeah.
How will it? So, but I don't think the Mandible Claw's Blood Rush Bellow is a problem. So if you look the way Lexi evolved, when Lexi came out, she had the bow and she had Rain Razors and 3 of a kind, right? This was available to Lexi relatively early on, Everfest. Yeah. But it was then the next package that came, which was the Codex and the good arrows that came in Outsiders, which made Lexi the powerhouse. So to say it's the claws that we need to get rid of because they came first, right? So Blood Rush is not a problem. Or maybe we just don't print stuff that's too broken after it. I don't know. It's a design thing. It's also design cycles, what they're planning. When is the next Brute set going to come? So they need to have a sort of decay of the Brute heroes, right? To match when Brute heroes are coming out, or Brute cards. But it's a very iconic card for Brute players, right?
Yeah, it is.
So Blood Rush battle with a club doesn't feel the same.
No,
I've done
not.
it. It doesn't feel the same.
It doesn't. But it feels better. I would say it feels better now that we have the access to agility tokens and stuff like that, which is something that probably back when we were doing Blood Rush Bellow into club, it wasn't. It didn't feel as powerful. It felt like fine, right? But there were better buffs, and I am interested. I don't know the Sash thing because you mentioned that we have one more weekend of ProQuest, right? And I actually had the numbers here. So week 2 of ProQuest, which was the first week after Dromai, and I'm going to say that the reason that Kayo still had the most wins, 15 wins, but I'm going to say that if you look at the next week, Kayo had 24 wins. I don't know if there were more events or less, but that's still a decent amount of a spike, right? There's 3 points per win this ProQuest season. I would think ProQuest week 2 was a little bit more of a chaotic week because no more Dromai, people are figuring it out. Week 3, people are closer to figuring it out. KO is probably the most consistent deck, S tier as you said. And if we see another 20 to 24 win weekend this weekend for KO, that's going to be a minimum 60 points added. So you're getting pretty close to 500, and then you're like halfway there without. I mean, what was it, 3 months? This is almost. I mean, not quite Starvo level, but kind of getting there. So the Sash coming out, and we could get in, there could be a whole nother podcast about the availability of the KO deck, because that is also another thing. There might only be 100 KO players that are able to play the Sash, So does this Sash make a big difference here, along with what's the other card that I think people are pretty
the blue? I don't know.
Run Roughshod, which is the 5 attack blue, 3 block, and play this only if you discarded a card with 6 or more this turn.
That's a good card.
That's a very good card, and I believe there's 3 of them in the deck, so you can get the play set.
I mean, that's one good thing. That's not the only good thing, but it's one of the good things that they did with the deck, right? You buy one deck, you have everything. You don't need to buy 1.5 decks and then find a buddy to split, cut a card in half or something. Yeah, so I think that's a good change. I don't understand the release timing, to be honest. And I also think that the ProQuest. So one problem is KO, but I think what this discussion that we're having now, we're going to have in a year with another hero because of the way LL works. So Fab is growing. This is a little bit one of the Achilles heel of the LL format. With Fab growing, of course, you need more events. You're going to have more events. You're going to have more callings. You're going to have more battle hardens. Because of that, you're going to have higher churn. I don't think everyone in the Fab community is loving this LL system as much as maybe LSS does. So they're not all. This is not the favorite child of everyone, and embracing it with bear hugging and kissing it. Yeah, I've had conversations at my LGS. I've had conversations in other places where people have only had negative things to say about the LL format, system, with the exception of heroes getting banned because of it. I don't think that those two things should be. So also on Discord, on Twitter, it's becoming out more and more that people are kind of sticking those things together. So it's it's fine because KO's broken, and then they can LL quickly out of the game. But from my point of view, and I think LSS also has said this, that this is not what LL is for, and they will make adjustments to power level of decks if necessary outside of this.
Mm-hmm.
From what that's my current understanding. Maybe something has changed in the policy. I don't know, but I would assume that still is their stance on LL and power level of decks. I'm personally not a fan of the LL format, system, not format. The LL format is another. We can have another episode to talk about.
Yeah. No, when you come back, we'll do that.
So the issue is, I'm a new player. I come to the LGS. LGS, at least in my local area, most LGSs are only doing CC at the moment. I'm assuming there's some Blitz, so I think in Japan Blitz is very popular. But I think in Europe, I assume in the US and similar, a lot of it is, with the exception of close to after set release, it's going to move back to CC, unless there's a skirmish season coming up, but baseline is CC. So I play CC. Hey, what deck can I play? CC and Fab in general, it's very difficult to compete when you don't have certain cards, right? So you don't have a tunic, okay, maybe you can play around that. You don't have a helmet, okay, maybe you can play around that. But if we're playing a mirror and I have something that you don't have, I will probably be ahead because I'm already ahead on experience. Now I'm ahead also on card quality, right? So it's a bad experience for the person joining. Now this player buys a Kayo deck, upgrades it with whatever resources they want to put in. So either they buy booster packs, or they trade for the cards, or they just flat out purchase the cards. And then the hero gets banned because it LLs.
Yeah,
it's hard to stay around.
It is.
Or to convince that player, hey, no, it's okay, don't worry, you can play Rhino. And I was like, but I don't want to play Rhino, I want to play Kayo because that's the deck I've been playing for the last 3 months, or 2 months, or 3 weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
So I've had this conversation with the player word for word. They started playing. It was when Phi was good. They started playing, and then they said, okay, but Phi is close to LL now. What am I going to do when Phi goes up? Like LLs. I don't want to buy these cards for Phi because they will LL. That player doesn't come to LGSs anymore.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. Yeah. And people can say, yeah, it's just some anecdotal story and blah, blah, but I'm sure this has happened in other places as well.
It is, yeah. So, it is certainly tough, and I don't know. Do you? How would you change that, Florin? I mean, like, it's kind of tough. We're so far deep into like this Living Legends kind of theory and project that LSS is doing with their card game. Like, what would you do to kind of salvage the kind of the playability of these heroes? Living Legend format, which you mentioned. I mean, that's like a crazy format. Like, I don't know. Do you introduce a new format where it's I don't know. How do you approach that?
So I think, first of all, so I played a little bit of Magic, and I can talk about what the problem is with having multiple formats. It splinters the community, right? So if you have 10 players that want to play Living Legends, and then you have 8 players that want to play Classic Constructed, that's going to go on for a while. Then 2 players drop from one group, 2 players drop from the other group, and then they have to kind of consolidate into one group, or it just kind of, they will both separately, like, might die out, let's say. So that's one problem with splintering into too many formats. The other thing to say is, unfortunately, every system has a flaw.
Yeah.
And now that I have more to do with card games and I get into contact with other card games a lot, it's just the way it is. Unfortunately, fortunately, whatever adjective you want to use. This is the marching route that we're given, and this is what we have to adapt. For me, of course, I'm an franchise player, so we take it, we go where the ship goes. We're fighters. We dodge a little bit, we cry a little bit on Twitter, we laugh with our friends, and then we're good, right? But it makes the entry a little bit more difficult. That's also this mid-season heroes rotating out. I don't know, but okay. I also don't want Dromite to be viable for another 3 weeks because I don't like Dromite. So I'm fine. But if it's my deck that's going, I'm not fine, right? Because I went in Blitz, I was not fine. I had to get a new deck. I had to go through boxes of cards. I ended up playing Bravo. It was bad. But that's just to make it a bit more humoristic. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is a tough thing, and like, yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the Dromai. I don't want to play against more Dromais, but I play a lot of Riptide now. If Riptide was gone, I'd be like, oh well, that stinks. But you kind of have to take those licks, and I think you're right. It is what it is. There's no perfect system. I think the rate. Personally, I think the rate in which Kayo is gaining these points is a little concerning. I think there's probably a healthier amount of like rate of points. Like I think Dromai, was probably the healthy time that it was in. I mean, I didn't particularly like that deck. I don't know if it was a healthy deck, but I would say that the amount of time that Dromai was in, it was probably something I would be a little bit more comfortable accepting to be legal, right? So it's a little tough, but I am really interested, especially after this weekend of the ProQuest. If Kayo has another big week, I mean, obviously they can't really do anything before Warsaw, but yeah, they'll be like,
Monday we have banned the card that we have just printed in a new product that we're trying to sell.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the interesting thing. I mean, what would you even if you were sitting there, you play a lot of Flesh and Blood, you have a deep understanding of this game and what makes KO good. What would you even ban? What would you suspend?
Barefangs, Wild Rat.
The two of them.
Probably.
Wow. I mean, I guess in that deck they're really doing the thing now.
It only touches KO. I mean, Wild Rat touches Levi a bit, but
yeah. I mean, I don't. Levi's not playing as much Wild Rat. I would almost say. I mean, it hurts like aggro Rhinar. I think pretty decently, but yeah. I mean, those cards are almost guaranteed hits in KO.
Or Scab Skins. We can get rid of Scab Skins.
Oh, are you on the Scabs? Are you on the get rid of Scab Skins train? I've been, more and more of that.
I'm on it so I just think the card is just generally powerful. So you can have the discussion of skill level of the card. I don't want to get into that. I think someone posted a very long piece, which was very good, detailing what was. I don't remember who it was now, but it was someone on Twitter. It's not just it's not like a skill-less card. Mm-hmm. However, the card is just unfortunately just has 3 block on it as well.
Yeah.
So it has an effect with 3 block.
Yeah.
And it stays. It's Balor, right? It's not the gloves from Bravo that you activate once every 50 games. It's something that is there, and you have this effect, so to say, for free. And you can choose to use it when you want. It's on an equipment, so it's always there, right? It's not a card you have to put in Arsenal. It's not a hero ability that you have to do after, I don't know, like you pitch a yellow card and then you can do this or whatever. It's all the time there. Whenever you want to try your luck, for whatever reason, if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense, you can do it. So that's a card. Of course, you can just chop pieces wherever you want, right? The helmet is a problem in certain matchups. It just depends where you want to take the deck. But if you want to just reduce the power level and you don't want to hit the new cards that came out, Barefangs, Wild Rat. But I think the cards are in the new deck, so that's again a problem.
Are they?
I think Barefangs are. I know everyone just checks which cards. Do I know any of these?
Wild
cards?
Ride. Yeah. Yellow Barefangs. Oh, and red bear. And red Barefangs. Yeah. So that'd be a tough one to do. Maybe maybe and obviously we're not here to solve it. We're just here to talk about it, folks.
Yeah,
but
it's easier for us.
Yeah, definitely easier for us. And I don't think we're gonna solve it. But I say let it ride. I guess LSS, because I know you're listening. Thank you for listening. Always appreciate it. But let it ride. Get rid of Mandible Claws. Then I can build my Rhinar Rock deck, or my double Ball Breaker deck. Why not just have a blast? But we do have some listener questions, Florin, before we say our goodbyes. These all come from the Buds Discord, which anybody can join. It is in the link tree below. The first question comes from Capolo. who is asking, is there a way to get good at the game without investing lots of time? Capolo, just stop being lazy, man. No, actually.
Is there a way to get good at the game without investing lots of time? I think so. First, we have to define what is lots of time, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's
lots of
true.
time for me playing Fab is probably a little different than most.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to get good is without investing a lot of time. There is no shortcut,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. That's the dry and boring answer. But to give some useful ideas of what you can do, um, if you are taking a train to work, for example, rather than listening to music, you can listen to podcasts. If you are, yes, like
This
this
one?
one, exactly. This sort of idea. So try to use, I don't want to call it dead time, but like time where you're doing things, whatever, playing on your phone. If you want to get better at the game, dedicate some of that time to this. Um, if you don't have a lot of time to play, like be there, like mentally when you're playing the game. Like play as if you're playing for day 2 at a calling, or play like you're playing for top 4 or for winning the tournament. Like be in the zone and be prepared to play. Don't listen to music on the side. Don't watch YouTube on the side. Don't watch the series on the side. Whatever you're doing now, because I know everyone's doing it because I'm doing it as well, right? Like I also have to tell myself, okay, turn that off. Just focus on the game. Be here. That's what I would suggest. So meaningful practice time
Yeah,
if you don't want to spend time,
that's a
a
great
lot of time.
answer. Something I started doing, because I also don't have a ton of time, is I try to take notes after every game, especially the ones I lose, and try to pinpoint, well, what went wrong there. I think that's always helpful. At least it gets it in your brain thinking about it, whether you figure out the answer or not. The next two questions come from Sigma. First one being, is it easy to be a full-time TCG player in Europe? If not, why?
Is it easy to be a full-time TCG player? Mm. So I can talk about my current situation and how I used to work 32 hours a week before summer. There were some unfortunate things that had happened that where the company closed down, and then I opened my own online shop for cards where I buy and sell cards. This finances my trip and my current lifestyle. Uh, Being a full-time TCG player in Europe, I think is, I don't want to say impossible. There are ways and routes to do it to generate enough of an income. But I think if you are talking about it from being a real professional, as the sense of the word, um, I also don't think it's something you want to aspire to. I think you need to be playing multiple games. Your attention is super divided. You are under constant pressure to perform, which reduces the fun out of it. So I would not recommend for people to do it. Um, but if you're talking about playing TCGs in Europe, of course it's better to be in the US. But I think we're getting our events. We're fine. We're fine. There are other regions that are much worse off than we are in Europe. What's a little bit more difficult, I think, in Europe is growing the community a little bit. So there are language barriers.
Mm.
Everyone speaks, or a lot of people speak English there in their community, of course. However, they have preferences towards their mother tongue. So be it in the German-speaking region, be it Italy, Spain, of course, we all meet, we all talk. However, if you notice the teams that are, let's say, more prominent, they are, the Polish team, Sunflower, Samurais. These are localized teams, right, from countries. So you have a smaller pool of players. Also, I think for content creation, it's the same. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit more difficult for growing your base, right? So if you have a Spanish podcast, for example, it's difficult for me to listen. I took 5 years of Spanish. I can understand every second word, but I cannot follow the discussion.
Yeah.
So I think that's So it's not easy to answer the question.
Yeah.
To be a full-time TCG player or content creator for that matter. I think that's also
I
important to talk about.
I would say it's not easy in the U.S. either, to be honest.
It's not easy anywhere.
Yeah. And his second question is one that I'm actually really, curious to hear your answer here. Is you recently joined Go Again Gaming's The League That Means Nothing, which I actually commentated on a couple matches, including one of yours, Florence. Why did you do it if there's no prizes involved, especially you being a competitive / pro player?
So the honest story is the following. I saw the post on Twitter. I kind of thought I was whispering as to get more information of what this is. And then I was signed up. And then I didn't want to back out. No, no, it was, to be honest, it was more of a, I saw the post. I'm like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Like, play games. What's bad about playing games? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's just fun. It was a new set. I said, perfect. You know what I'll use this for? I'll take a deck and I'll do something that I hadn't done before, which is play one deck only and just focus, like have, I don't want to call it dedicated practice sessions on the deck, but just be like, okay, I'm going to play Kasai and I'm going to have Kasai and I'm going to have this number of games that I'm going to play Kasai and I'm going to play against other people, right? It's not just Talishar games where I sit down and I'm just, sure, whatever, go next, play, whatever, go next, right? It's streamed. There's a little bit of a, I mean, it's recorded, not streamed, sorry. It's a little more playing. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's how. And I kind of embrace this. It means nothing. It's true.
Yeah.
It means nothing. And I think it's more people should embrace that when playing.
Yeah.
Like the loss, I mean, I am a big proponent of fun but serious. I don't know if that makes sense, kind of like take things seriously, but also have fun doing it, right? When it's serious time, you focus, you play the game, you are in the moment, you do your best, and then when you're outside the game, you're outside, you're having fun. You can also have fun in the game, right?
Yeah.
But if you have to make a decision, be serious about the decision. Treat the game with the seriousity it deserves, right?
Yeah.
I think that's
why. I mean, that's a great reason to do it because it is a game and we should be having fun. And it is fun also to like play something seriously and then like, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna roll scabs or something like that. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to do it. Why not? This league means nothing. I could really high roll right now, or whatever. And I don't know. Love what Az does over there. And a follow-up question, which is coming from William Knuckles, who asks, do you think Az from Go Again Gaming should TO Worlds? Because he thinks that Az should do that.
I think he should definitely commentate if he wants to.
Yeah.
I don't know if he should be the TO for all of Worlds. I don't know if he would want to be the TO for all of Worlds, considering how Barcelona was with the 900 player side event. I don't know if he wants to. If he wants to do that,
Go for it.
Back him up.
But Az is the best. And so are you, Florin. This is a lot of fun. I hope you had a good time. Thank you for giving us your time. Are you going to Warsaw?
Yes, I will be going to Warsaw and to Tokyo.
Well,
and I'm actually going to be there for US Nets.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'll see you there. We'll have to hang out. The Buds will be rooting for you at all 3 of those events.
Thank you.
Thank
you for having me.
Absolutely.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. And can you please plug anything you like to plug? I know you don't do a lot of content or anything like that, but I know, you have your shop and you got your Twitter.
Yes. So on Twitter, I'm at Malaxy, MALAKXY. And there you can find the link to my shop Twitter. But I'm basically on Card Market, where I sell a lot of my cards, Arctic TCG.
Cool.
But you can also just whisper me on Twitter if you want to buy or sell stuff. We can make something happen.
Make it happen. Thank you so much, Florin. You can all continue to find me on Twitter at freshbudspod. Check out the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. It all helps support the show. The Buds Discord's popping off always. Check out my other podcast I do with my cousin Maddie. called Fresh Juice. We talk about indie video games. It's a good time over there. And Florin, I always like to end every show talking a little bit about food. Hit me with some food you want to talk about. Perhaps something local or something you've liked in your travels.
Food? Oh, we should have started with this. This is going to be like an hour now. So I always, like not always, but sometimes I end my tweets with play fab, like eat in the world or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So everywhere we go, we try to eat as well food as possible.
Yeah.
So I love food. I love trying out new things. Maybe I should turn it around. If you know things for me to try out when I'm over there, or if people that are in Japan that are watching this for sure, if they have things for me to try out when I'm over there, I just love trying out food. I look like it. Maybe you can only see shoulder height.
No,
But I enjoy food. I'm sure you do as well.
Oh, I love
because food is best.
Well, I tell you what. You're coming to US Nats, which is in Minneapolis, and there is a famous burger in Minneapolis I've never had. It's called the Juicy Lucy. Basically, this burger where they put cheese in the middle when they cook it. It's supposed to be really good. Probably burn our mouth on the cheese. It's like bursts out when you bite into it. We got to have it when we go to Minneapolis. I know I'm going to try it. So
we can make it happen somehow. Yes, perfect.
Yeah, awesome.
Juicy Lucy sounds already mouth watering.
Yeah, right. But thank you again. Unfortunately, we don't have time for Charmer as always, but we'll get to him eventually. Please, everyone, stay fresh and enjoy your last week of ProQuest.